So we have completed the step. We have planned out our segments and, of course, our buffer time and all of that. We've planned our segments. We're good to go, right? Well, I mean, yes, but if we want to get into the technical details, now we have to talk about the literal building of our stream. Before that, I want to return to chat, of course. Since the show is planned out, I'm wondering if having some sort of like a topic index to indicate to viewers that topics have already been talked. So yes, Phoenix, I actually did this for a little while on Streamer News. I actually had a little slideshow that I made ahead of every stream with all the topics that I would do, and it would have an indicator of what the current topic is, and then the topics around it of what's been previous and what's coming up next, kind of like I do for some of my on-video timecode bars in general anyway. The issue is depending on how many topics you have, because we sometimes talk about a lot in Streamer News, the slideshow source for OBS can only house so many images, like it's like 15 or 13 or something, and it just can't play more than that. So you can run into some issues trying to make it work. You can probably do it better through HTML and some scripting. There's probably better ways to do it, but just trying to do it lazy as like an overlay screen slideshow source in OBS did not work out for me due to the limited quantity you can choose from. But absolutely, that element could be super key, and we're actually going to talk about that in the next section when we're talking about the building of the scene itself. That brings us to section... I don't know why I just said number 2. It is actually section number 4, so 2 plus 2. We planned our generalized show. We have the where and the why, which will affect our segments. We have our segments, and now we build the stream. Okay, so now we're building the stream. Or the show. I guess I should call this the show. Building the stream / show. Okay, so you need to think about a few things. So this is our actual ideas. Let's go back to the how-to category here. So build, show / stream. So you need to think about a few different categories. You have the physical realm to choose from. We'll talk about it in a moment. You have OBS and everything involved in that. You have branding, visuals, graphics, things like that. And then you have your distribution workflow, which can kind of be its own thing. We'll wrap that around to 0.9 here. But let's start with this. So you need to plan out the physical aspects of your show. This may sound silly if you already have a streaming setup and things like that, but your current streaming setup may not accommodate what you want to do. So for example, this whole stream setup that I have right here, that was an exact translation of what I had in my retro room setup at my previous apartment that I lived in before we moved into this studio. This was built as primarily for me to just play video games, and then I was like, okay, I kind of want to stream with that. It was built for that, and then further adapted for me to be able to shoot videos here, because in 2020 that set became my main video set once we had my baby and the living room got taken over. But it wasn't built for the extra things that I want to do. So for example, this setup is not really capable of me doing PC gaming streams. Now, if I swapped out the PC configurations and set up a gaming PC and things like that, it could work, but it also wasn't suited for my Pokemon openings. I was doing all of my Pokemon card openings. I wanted to turn that into a thing. I didn't have the capabilities for that. So in order to update the set for it, I got a few different things. I got my overhead camera, which is a Panasonic G7. I mounted it on the ceiling with the Elgato ring light, which I'm going to turn on now. It's not in focus, but you get the idea. And then I can set up a split view where I am going through my Pokemon cards as I do in these streams, and you can see both my face and the cards and stuff in real time. I also needed a mic arm that I can move out of the way specifically for that setup. I'm using the Wave mic arm LP for this now. It's a little loose on the mount, but it's fine. So I'm going to turn the ring light back off now. So I needed to make modifications to my set before I started the show. Now, if you're just doing pilots, just doing tests and things like that, you may not want to make these modifications, in which case you can use temporary solutions, such as getting a little clamp and mounting your phone overhead pointed down at your screen to do the Pokemon openings, or, getting a half janky put together setup just to test the format. But once you're committed to it, even if you're not upgrading expensive gear, just getting the basics down, you want to make sure you have the space, layout, comfortable, long-term sit workflow for doing the thing you want to do. If you want to teach topics and have a whiteboard in the background, you need to get a whiteboard. You may need a secondary camera angle to focus on the whiteboard. If you want people's names highlighted in the background, you need a pegboard or something to highlight it in there. If you want specific, specific things to be done, you need to lay them out. So interactive elements, camera angles, audio. So a big one that I have struggled with due to the way that I typically set up my recording setups and things like that is my audio is designed for me to sit in one place and talk. So for a few of those episodes of AFK Chat, I was actually getting up and moving around and testing things, and the static microphone was not picking me up very well. At that point, if you're planning on getting up and teaching concepts or building things or painting streams or something around a space, a static desktop mic may not be the best choice for you, and you may need a lav mic and a wireless lav kit or something. I recommend checking out Deity microphones for that stuff. If you're doing like more professional stuff or doing things that you need the physical space in front of you occupied, you may need a shotgun mic out of frame instead of a desktop mic. And you need the audio that's right for your job because what is the standard desktop streaming microphone stuff it doesn't apply to every situation. And that is incredibly important that not everyone considers. And while some of the USB condenser microphones kind of technically work double duty and you can set them back and yell into them, the audio quality from them gets trash. So we have the physical realm, the physical, what are we doing? But we also have the digital realm. So you need to have OBS set up ahead of time, because if you're scrambling to set up all your scenes while you're live or before you go live, there's a lot to consider there. So for example, scenes and scene layouts, what do you need to showcase? So we talked about just a minute ago, if you're doing a news show or a multiple topic show like a podcast or something, having an image slideshow that shows the different, or with HTML files, you could actually just do dynamic text elements, but text or image layers that you can then switch between to indicate what subject you were on and what topic you were talking about. That's a way to keep audiences caught up with where you're at and what you're doing. You may need you'll need a balance between your gameplay scene, your dedicated face cam scene. So for example, right here, I have a few different scenes set up. I have my main camera, I have a side camera, which I'm currently adapting that we will work on for another setup. We have my overhead camera from when I'm unboxing something big, which we'll take a break from this big subject and do in a moment. I have my split overhead and face cam view. So when I'm opening a pack of Pokemon cards, you can see my big interaction in real time and be like, whoa! That's functionally kind of important. And then I also have my desktop split screen here, so you can see what I'm doing on the desk, websites that I need to feature, what I'm typing. We've got my back angle, that is when I'm picking out stuff in the studio or illustrating the setup itself, and so on and so forth. Now, most of what I'm featuring involves a bunch of different camera angles, and while you can do that on the cheap with a bunch of different phones and Droid Cam or Epoch Cam or NDI or whatever, it doesn't always have to be about different cameras. So you have your main camera, like say you're doing a painting stream, you may have your main camera pointed at your canvas or whatever, but then you also have a just chatting screen where you flip it around and point it at yourself and have chat on screen. Or maybe you have a split view like our desktop view here that has the desktop on screen and things like that. You may also need browser sources for game nights where you have, party game details or tournament brackets. You need to make sure you have those set up, and you need to make sure they are super organized. I also have a video on like OCD levels of organizing OBS and your streams and your scenes and things like that coming soon as well. I am excited for that one. You need to get all that together and organized. But then there's other elements to consider. And some of this kind of blends in with branding, but think about also considerations for the actual format that you want to stream. So we're talking resolution, aspect ratio, frame rate, and so on. If you're doing a stream that mainly involves gameplay, even if your cameras aren't on stream or aren't 60 FPS, your gameplay should generally, there's no universal rules, and I advocate all the time for situations where this isn't the case, but many times your gameplay should be 60 FPS. So even if your cameras are on screen for 30% of the stream and they're not 60 FPS, your gameplay may be 60 FPS, and if that's the primary focus of your content, that's what you should leverage. If you're doing more text-based things like programming or teaching or slow-moving things like art, higher resolution and higher quality at a lower frame rate may be more appropriate. For example, if you're just doing desktop capture like text-based, programming or things like that where you don't have a big or any camera presence at all, even 15 FPS is okay. because you will get higher image quality per frame. It's probably not necessary in most scenarios, but keep in mind, it is a little bit better. So the formats and things like that matter because you need to take into consideration where you're going to be reposting it. And this also affects how your scenes and your layouts are set up as well. So for example, again, TikTok, it needs to be vertical. So if you are doing something that is purely like high resolution, widescreen only, it's going to be really difficult to adapt that to TikTok. Meanwhile, this split view right here, I have Cujo in the chat who actually edits the videos for a side channel of mine called Stream Guides, where we post highlights from streams, clips from streamer news, and everything like that. It is very easy to cut these down into shorts or TikToks because I have a vertical slice of me and a vertical slice of what I'm showing. Meanwhile, the traditional presentation of what I'm doing right now would be a widescreen view of the desktop with me in a little circle or square in the corner. I also just don't like how that looks for a lot of desktop purposes, but it's also much more difficult to cut that into vertical or square oriented content, whereas these vertical slices are a lot easier to work with in that regard. Just a little tip and thought there. So take into consideration, doesn't need to drive every decision you make, but it can definitely help them. You also need to consider plugins. So there can be a wide variety of plugins or scripts or whatever for OBS that make your life easier, be it, and obviously I have tons of videos coming. I actually have another video on plugins coming next week for workflow things, but there's, like I have the downstream keyer from Exceldor running right now, which is how I have the music added to any scene. You've got the now playing stuff. If music is part of a huge part of your stream, you want to have that now playing text probably at least coming up sometimes. Color grading, on screen like hype trains or scoreboards or tournament bracket kind of things. You know, there's unlimited things you can do with plugins, but you may need those ahead of time and installed and set up on things like that because, oh boy. But I have a ton of content on plugins and more coming because there are a ton of cool stuff you can do with it. On top of, once you get into with Touch Portal and Lorien board and all sorts of stuff, you can have your stream controlled with channel points or bits or whatever. You can get real wild with it if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to. You also have to consider how interactive your stream should be, and that should also, again, consider the distribution. If your stream is primarily live and you want a ton of interaction, then you want to go all in on your alerts for your subs. You want to go all in for the channel point redemptions, the bits redemptions, and people interacting and controlling your stream or being represented on your stream at some point. But if you're primarily making a podcast or a teaching show or something that you're planning on really going all in on formatting for another platform like YouTube, most of that stuff doesn't work elsewhere because all that extra interactivity is just kind of spammy or dead air to someone watching on YouTube, unless it turns into a moment. And of course, you can have those moments that you then highlight out as well. But for example, if I'm making a tutorial, I'm going to be fairly quiet with chat and not want a bunch of alerts and things coming up for that part of the tutorial that I then post somewhere else. And then maybe my just chatting or break time scene has all those crazy interactivity elements and you guys can save them up for that. But you really have to consider what you want for that in order to plan it out a little bit better. Then you have the branding, of course. This one's fairly self-explanatory. I don't need to dive into this one too much, but you have, overlays, scene layouts. Keep in mind how they affect your layout for those other platforms. You've got music vibes to consider, all of those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's the distribution workflow, which is how will you get it to other sites? And that will also be its own separate point. Actually, yeah, that should just be its own separate point after you've built the stream. What will your video editing workflow look like? Which we're not necessarily focusing on a ton here because this is about how to build the show, not what to do with it after. So following these instructions, building the stream show. Physical. I can right now identify the limitations that I'm going to run into with the show that I want to run on Twitch right now. First and foremost, second monitor. I have two monitors in the setup, but one of them is disconnected because it was put up in a big old tall monitor mount above my BVM here, as it was in the previous plays. But I don't have a video cable that reaches because my current streaming computer for this side of things, even though it's running Threadripper, the graphics card in it is only a 1650 Super, and the 1650 Super only has 3 video outputs: one DisplayPort, one HDMI, one DVI. And so I need to run a DVI cable to this 1440p 120 hertz monitor because it's the only monitor I have available to throw here. That's a little jank. I technically have 3 monitors though, because I have on my teleprompter here, I have a field monitor that runs my teleprompter, and I also pull chat up so I can see you while chatting and things like that. I will probably need to upgrade that to a 7-inch. It's currently a 5-inch, but for now it's fine. But also consider those things. You may want to invest in a teleprompter. I have a whole episode of AFK Chat on my YouTube channel where we broke down the different teleprompter workflows and what works for different lenses and things like that, because they can be incredibly important for pulling up your slides. If you're doing PowerPoint slides, you can see the preview of your slides up here while your big ones go into stream. Pulling up your chat to then have chat on your stream, so you're looking at camera when you're talking about chat. Like right now, I'm reading chat while I'm looking at you, instead of being like, oh, hey, chat, yeah, I'm over here reading you and not looking at you. Eye contact is incredibly important. You could have your activity feed, so you always, when you look at the camera, you see who has followed or subbed or done whatever, so you have it in your eyes to identify. Or you can pull up other gameplay elements or whatever you need to. That's an incredible investment you can make. Make sure, of course, the basics, lighting, audio, we already talked about audio, space, we talked about that. And then scene switching and the like. So the big one for me right now that I need to work on is this monitor. I don't think you can see it in this back cam. No, it's off camera here. The monitor is mounted here, and I need to move it here. And we might do this during the stream. But also, a thing that I'm running into, I have kind of a cramped space here because you can kind of see here, my keyboard and mouse are on my Pokemon desk mat opening, and I often keep extra stuff I'm working on in the way, and I don't have a whole lot of like wiggle room. So I need to move this game shelf somewhere else that's sitting next to me. And I need to eventually, at some point soon, swap out to a wireless keyboard and mouse so I can keep them out of the way or in my lap or even on like a mounted tray here or something to easily interact with. And I've already gotten my Stream Deck over here up off the table mounted with one of those Stream Deck mounts that I have linked from Etsy that I have linked in previous videos. You can find that in my Stream Deck versus Stream Deck 2 review. I can go grab that if you would like. I will drop them. They're pretty cool 3D printed little Stream Deck mounts. They're super handy. So those are the 2 things that I need to work on physically right now, on top of a chair. I'm adding that to my list. I need a better chair for this setup. I talked about this last stream, but I had one that was supposed to be coming in when I moved, and then it no longer worked out, and so I'm stuck here with a stool. And it works for my Pokemon openings, because half the time I'm like standing up for those anyway. But for these streams, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I also have a fan here that I need to mount, a little USB powered silent fan that keeps me cooler. Then I need to mount a little bit off the surface of the table. I need better organization for my Pokemon cards, because often after streams, they just get left all over the desk because I don't have anywhere immediately to put them, like to keep them out of the way. I need a solution for that. So those are the physical things I need to work on before this stream launches, or this show launches in August. That was the physical. For the digital, for OBS, I need a couple things. I need just chatting scenes. I need updated alerts. I need specific scenes. So actually, I'll take just chatting scenes out here for a sec, because we'll come back to that in branding. Just chatting, unboxing, screen capture. What else do we need? Let's look back at our show titles to figure that out. We've got we've got our show idea. So stream critique. So I need screen capture for the stream critique. We need media sources for the app showcase / screen capture for that as well. Possibly mobile capture, probably via NDI. I don't have a scene set up for that. Q&A, just chatting. We have a just chatting scene, and then gameplay scene. Gameplay scene works out there as well. We already have the Pokemon scenes established because we already have that set up. Things like that. So then for that, we need new branding things as well, because I don't have some of these set up. So for branding, for example, I need a chat box. I probably need some slightly updated alerts, or I'm probably moving alert services off of Streamlabs, maybe to Stream Elements or something. But, you know, not that. We've got music already lined out, but I need to set up now playing lower thirds. If I want to have guests on or anything, I need an interview scene and interview graphics. I need general lower thirds, stingers, and I need to work out with that in OBS. I need transition tables set up. That may be all we need for now, because everything else is kind of established. Eventually, long term, I need to pretty up my badges. Going back to physical for a sec, I do want, that's been on my to-do list in general for the studio, is smart control over studio lights and stuff, because I can get you all to interact with them as well at some point. And yes, I need more sub emotes, actually. So that is the general plan. So the show that I'm going to make here on Twitter is a tech show. We don't have a name yet. You all can submit name in chat, but you know, whatever. We're making a tech show that's mostly going to be just chatting, but we might pop into science and technology. It's going to be something that I can reformat segments for YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok, and along with that, YouTube Shorts. The main segment is probably going to be stream critique, but we're also going to have smaller segments for Tweak Zone, that's a code name at the moment, but basically basic unboxings and first impressions, as well as general testing and tweaking of things, and then an app or tool showcase of some sort, which kind of falls in a similar line, but one of that's kind of more physical or experimental, whereas one is more digital and just a list kind of thing. And then we'll have Q&A/tech support sprinkled in throughout, and an after party. This isn't necessarily the order, but an after party that results in me getting to open up Pokemon cards or playing gameplay. Now, two other things, now that I'm going through this, that I will also need in terms of OBS is comment highlight and QE up questions, as Cujo pointed out for that one, which will count as comment highlight, as we see in our list here. And for branding, we need a hype train. And actually, the comment highlight thing does not go in specific scenes. That's just a dedicated OBS thing. So I have this camera. So I have this scene right here with this side camera angle. This used to be a horizontal camera, so you can see the cool lights in my desk set up back there. I have since flipped it vertical because with my SM7B mounted in the middle here, I can actually use this to film my TikToks moving forwards, because the audio on my iPhone is garbage. It often clips and peaks out like crazy, and it just doesn't produce the results I want, whereas I'm very happy overall with the image I get out of this camera. I'm going to slap another filter on it and adjust the angle a little bit here. But overall, I think this is a great vertical video view with high quality audio, decent lighting, and still shows cool lights in the background, while I can still cut TikTok from my normal camera views and the like. If I want to sit down and record a response to something, I can do it right here. But I want to utilize the rest of the space in the scene right here, all this black space. And so I need to come up with ideas such as adding in chat in the middle and adding other elements on screen and things like that to turn it into its weird kind of just chatting scene of its own here that I think would be pretty cool. Now, there is extra stuff that I can, integrate here. I can set up cameras and stuff so I can stream next-gen consoles once we have the HD Fury device in here from that side of the TV and just have it fed back over here. And I can also figure out a way to smoothly transition to my PC game streaming setup over in the main desk and the main desk streaming setup. I've got a lot of logistics to figure out with actually streaming from multiple streaming setups at the same time. But that's long-term and not relevant necessarily to this immediate show that I am planning. If we want to get more granular, I do have other ideas for specific graphics I need. So, for example, I need announcement pages, such as for game night and upcoming episodes and things like that. Dedicated scenes could be BRB with video previews or TikToks. So this is the general idea of the show that I'm going to produce on Twitch starting in August. And frankly, this is quite a bit more planned out than AFK Chat was. So I think it's going to be a little bit more successful. But going back to our original objectives, this is a show that I can package into a 1 or 2 hour live stream here on Twitch. I can interact with you all, involve you all in the show, especially in between segments, but also during it. I can get a full stream critique episode for YouTube out of it, edited down from the stream, and it'll have interactive elements. You all can give feedback or vote on things on top of the planned out thoughts that I have on the stream, as well as some winged thoughts on, that I come up with on the fly, because that's how a lot of the stuff goes. I also have an app/tool showcase segment that I can then edit down for YouTube, but Also, if I don't feel like it makes a good dedicated YouTube video on its own, each of those individual tools or apps or whatever that I showcase and talk about can become a TikTok video as well as a YouTube short. The tweak zone, for the most part, will be relegated. Well, also, stream critique can be highlighted out to be a Twitter highlight that just promotes the video. The app tools showcase can be reposted to Twitter as well. Pretty much anything going to TikTok or YouTube shorts can also go on Twitter. The tweak zone, the unboxing first impressions parts, will just go on my side channel, the Stream Guides channel, as well as the general testing and tweaking, unless it's a big, like something really happens that I think deserves to go on to main. But that feeds content into my second channel, and if it happens to be short enough, it can go to a short or TikTok, but that's less likely. Then we'll have the Q&A just chatting segment, which if there's significant questions that I need to highlight or talk about more, those can become Twitter videos as well as TikToks or YouTube shorts on either the main or secondary channel. And then we have the after party gameplay stuff, which is just hanging out with you all and playing the games and the Pokemon card openings, which could be edited down to go on my dedicated Pokemon channel, HoloQuest, which I had started and then been unable to keep up with. If I get an editor for that or something, that's also feeding content there. So we are feeding content to so many different places from what is effectively a 1 to 2 hour live show. And this is how you plan it out and make it happen. This was a 2-hour live stream to tell you about all that, because this is all the kinds of work that go into it. For a question that I mostly get asked over on TikTok, where they expect me to answer in 60 seconds or less. But this is how you do it, and this is the strategy that I employ and the strategy that someone like Ludwig uses effectively to plan out his gameplay shows, which then turn into daily YouTube videos as well. I hope this makes sense for everyone.